Let's take a look at some nymphs. Now most nymphs are for trout, but not necessarily. They're used for other fishes sometimes. First thing you'll notice about this selection is that we have this large nymph here, very colorful one too, with antennae and kind of a cool one called the Bitch Creek. And that's big. They get a lot bigger, but that's big. And here's a little one, and they get a lot smaller, but this is the WD-40. There's a big range. Now, probably these flies are more typical, sizes 12, 14. But nymphs, just like dry flies, run a big range. Now, what you see a lot of these days on nymphs is what we call a bead head. This fly has it. This is the copper john. It has this big gold bead right here. This one, the Gabriel's trumpet, has a big gold bead. Now this one, the Pedis' pulsating caddis pupa, actually has beads, but it's hard to see them. They're kind of hidden in here, and they are not metal beads like these. They're glass beads, and they give a shine, which, you can see that, but kind of hidden partly under that fuzz, they sort of illuminate it, and that's what the designer wanted. These all do two things. There is that shine, and in this case it kind of fills out the abdomen, and again with the shine or brightness. But those beads serve a really important purpose also, which is that they force the fly to go down. Now if you're fishing in a river particularly, half the challenge is to get that fly down to the fish before the river sweeps the fly past you and out to the end of your line. So when you've got a fly that's got a big, not big, but just heavy bead on it, like these, well, down it goes. And then a lot of flies, like this Bitch Creek, for example, has lead, or nowadays it's typically a lead substitute wire wound over the shank, maybe even in 2 layers, and that provides weight. Sometimes, in fact, a lot of times you'll see a fly like the Gabriel's trumpet here actually has some lead under the thorax, lead wire, or again, lead substitute wire actually. So it's got the bead and the windings of heavy wire. Now, these, there's quite a range in these flies. For example, this is what we would almost call, this is the anatomical green drake, and we almost call that a realistic fly, but it's not. It's a semi-realistic fly, but it's really got some details. It looks a lot like what it imitates. It's got a dark, smaller bead head right there, but it's got 3 tails like the real insect, and you can see it's got nice segmentation and a back, a gelatinous looking sort of back, and it's got these gills along the abdomen. I mean, quite realistic, splayed legs, all that stuff. And then you've got simpler, rougher imitations, and you know what? Fished well, these rougher ones can do very well for you. But the WD-40 is really simple. There's not much to it. A little fuzz, some tails, that's about it. But it works too. It's a proven fly. Another difference you'll see between these flies, this Pedis' pulsating caddis is definitely an imitation of a caddis pupa. No doubt about it. But then you look at the copper john, and it's what we call an attractor fly. It does not really imitate anything. And on the back, let's see if I can show you that. Well, I will. On the back, what we call the wing case, there's a little bar of silver that kind of flashes in the light. I don't know if you can see it. When it just winks at the trout. The trick is to get it at just the right angle where it winks. There, I did a little bit, I think. But this is, even though it's a kind of a believable nymph, looks something like a real nymph, it's really an attractor fly for the most part. And then this is the Gabriel's trumpet, and it's definitely an attractor fly, in part because it is so bright. No real insect has that brilliant golden metal abdomen and a golden metal head. But let me tell you, these attractor flies sometimes will really outfish imitative flies. Most of the time I'd say go with something that looks natural, but when these attractor flies work, boy do they work. And then you've got the the Bitch Creek, which is pretty much an imitation of a stonefly nymph. It's an older one. It's a little bit inconsistent in that regard, but so what? It works. And that's an important thing about flies, is if they work, they work. You know, it doesn't, you're not the fish. You got to let the fish, make their choices. And if they like a fly, let them have it. And a lot of flies are a little bit unrealistic, but yet they are imitations. Now this is really an imitation, and quite a realistic one. We classify it generally as a nymph because it's fished like a nymph, dead drift, but what the heck, it's an egg. It imitates a fish egg, and it works. It's a glow bug. And, there are some strange flies that we call nymphs and that we call all kinds of things, but, the important thing is they work.